when we start with thyroid, we start with TSH. You're always going to get that. You go to your doctor, you say, I want my thyroid tested. They're going to test TSH. That's a no-brainer. But even in that test, that standard lab value range goes up to a 4.5. Functional medicine wants it below a 2. So right there we see, okay, there's a discrepancy of conventional medicine versus functional. We like much more narrow range. And in that TSH, I don't even care if you're suppressed. I don't care if you're below a 1. That does not mean that you're hyper, ER, as in, hyped up, crazy. Your thyroid is producing too much thyroid hormone. I don't care about that. I want that TSH below 2. Then we move on to free T4 and free T3, which those are testing the unbound forms of the 2 thyroid hormones. T4 is inactive, T3 is active. Honestly, at the end of the day, I don't care about the free T4 as much. I don't want it in the toilet. I'd like it around a 1, 1.2. If it's too high, that kind of flags me that you're either making too much T4 or you're given too much T4 in the form of thyroid replacement. So these are the people that I know you're listening. You're on Levo, you're on Synthroid. That is it. Your doctor gave you some T4 pills and said, this is all you need for your thyroid. You'll be fine. So if that T4 is too high, that's a red flag for me that you're on too much T4 medication. And I bet they're not testing your reverse T3. So hold on to your pants. We'll get there. Free T3 is the active thyroid hormone. That's really important. This one is the one that I really focus on. I want that in the upper quadrant of the range. So we used to say 3.5 or above because most labs would kind of roll in. If you came in at 3.5, you were in that upper quadrant. LabCorp has thrown a wrench in that. They have a lab value range that goes all the way up to 4.4. So now I just say, I want you in that upper quadrant of the range. Or if you're listening in a different country, upper quadrant of that range. So that's where you will look at the standard lab value range, but you want to be in the upper quadrant of it. Reverse T3 is your anti-thyroid hormone. I use the analogy of a bouncer at the club. The bouncer is outside of your cell door, not allowing that beautiful active T3 thyroid hormone to attach to the receptor site of the cell. So too much reverse T3 is a problem. And in functional medicine, we want it less than 12. Now that range goes all the way up to a 24. So I have had patients come in with a reverse T3 of a 20, of a 22, and they're told that they're normal. But it's important to remember what reverse T3 does in the body. Reverse T3 is a beautiful survival mechanism that was built into us. So when you are in the ICU or the ER, you're in a traumatized state, you're pregnant, you don't need to be burning body fat. You don't need a high metabolism. You don't need to, pregnancy aside, if you're laying in the ICU or the ER, you really don't need to be growing your hair or feeling that great. You just need to survive. So it will go up in those times of stress and trauma to protect the body. It's built into us for a reason. The problem is when we give you too much T4, so now I'm coming back to all my peeps out there on T4 only, we give you too much T4, and that's what doctors will do. Here, have more. Let's increase your dose. Let's bring you up again. Let's increase your dose. All that T4 will push over to reverse T3. Now you have too much reverse T3, and you're like, I'm on so much thyroid hormone, and I feel like garbage. Well, yeah, that's because your doctor keeps dumping on that T4 medication, and you're pushing it over into the anti-thyroid hormone, reverse T3. Really important to look at that. Vital to test it. Do not let your doctor tell you that it's only tested in a clinical setting, because that's wrong. We want to test it because here's the thing. If you're walking around trying to live life, I don't want you in survival mode. I don't want your body thinking that you're laying in the ICU. I want you vital and happy and energized and living your best life. So we have to test that. And then we test the 2 thyroid hormones, TPO and TGA. Those are tests for Hashimotos. We want to see if you have the autoimmune form of hypothyroidism. And any antibody is an antibody. I always use the analogy of soldiers. So when we're talking about any kind of autoimmune condition, you have those soldiers that go out and they attack whatever body part is in the autoimmune realm. So in the case of Hashimotos, it's a thyroid gland. Those soldiers go out and they attack your thyroid and they beat it up and they whittle it down to nothing. So it can no longer produce T4 and T3 properly. If you have 5 soldiers or if you have 35 soldiers, it makes a little bit of a difference. Yeah, you have more of an army with 35 or 100 or 1,000. But even if you have 5, that army is going to grow. If you have 5 soldiers, it's time to look at that and say, hey, there's something going on here. You are building up immunity to your own thyroid gland. Why don't we stop it now before it progresses and before it builds up to 100 or 1,000 and before you're 50 pounds heavier and laying on the couch and you can't get up? Let's address it now. So that's those are all of the thyroid tests that I like to see. There are some that you might see on there, like the total T4 and T3. You might see T3 uptake, not as important when we're really kind of whittling it down for you to understand it, for you to be able to write this down and get all the tests. Those are the top ones.
Okay, so many questions. So number 1, can you name the T4 medications that are out there that people are on so that they can identify what they're on? And with that question, is that to say that when the doctor, if you don't feel great, you go to your doctor, they increase the T4 medication and you will actually feel worse? That is the clue that things are going to reverse T3. Is that correct?
Yes. So the T4 medications, you're going to have your levothyroxine, that's the generic, Synthroid brand, and then Tirosint is another brand. So those are that falls into the T4 category. Levoxyl is another one. There's a couple over in Europe. I'm forgetting I think Euthyrox or something, but those are just T4 only. And just like Sarah said, as your doctor keeps increasing it, because you go to your doctor like, hey, I can't lose weight. I'm really tired all the time. My hair is falling out. Oh, here's some more T4. Let's increase your thyroid medication. Or they'll do something wacky like, let's increase it on Saturday and Sunday and keep it the same through the week. It doesn't matter. You're still increasing your T4. And if they're not testing reverse T3, that's a problem. And if you increase your T4 medication and you feel worse, that is a problem. So that's a kind of a signal to you to say, yeah, you should probably look at that reverse T3 because you might not be converting properly. T4 has to convert to T3 to become active. There's not a single receptor site on your cell for T4, not one. It has to convert and become T3 in order for it to become active. So if you think about it, we're giving you all this inactive thyroid hormone. And yes, the body is built to convert, but it doesn't always convert well. And not everybody converts well. Some people have issues converting. So that's where we have to look at that reverse T3.